Hey traders, it's John Fortune here with this week's weekly Forex forecast for the 13th of January to the 17th of January 2020. We're going to start off as we always do by looking at the US dollar index and crude oil before running through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. We're going to be highlighting some of the targets that we're going to be looking for in this coming weekend, also for the weeks ahead. So I hope you're having a nice weekend. Let's jump over to the charts and see where the money is this week. As always, we're going to start off by looking at the US dollar index. Now, in last week's video, we were looking for a pullback in the dollar index, and we highlighted the 97.36 to 97.49 area as a pullback area and a place to start to look for a reversal in the dollar index to the downside. We have pulled back to this area and we start the week sitting at this area, so we are looking now for further declines to the downside going into next week in the dollar index, as we are still structured to the downside, making lower highs and lower lows. So if we can get the right kind of bearish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking for further declines down towards the next key area of support to the downside of the target set at the 95.98. So as things stand, we are going into next week with a bearish bias on the dollar index, and we would favour dollar weakness as the higher probability play in the dollar pairs next week. So next market we're going to look at is crude oil. Now, last week we were looking for further advances to the upside, and we did take out the target set to the upside at 64.91 in crude oil. You will notice that last week in crude oil and also in the yen pairs, we did have some fairly sharp moves. We had high volatility coming into the market because of the ongoing US-Iran tensions. They do look like they are starting to dissipate, but just bear in mind that crude oil, if you are trading crude oil or you are trading yen denominated pairs next week, there is an increased risk because of the US-Iran tensions of spikes and volatility moves in these markets. So just bear that risk in mind if you are trading those markets next week. In terms of crude oil, what we're going to be looking for next week, we've now broken down and we start the week below a key area of broken support from the past, looking to turn resistance at the 62.08. If we can get a pullback, and as always, if we can come back and retest broken support, turning resistance, this is going to be a great place to start to look for those bearish patterns, especially as we're already coming very close to the targets. We need to see a pullback take place in this market first. And if we can get that pullback, and especially if we can get this retest of broken support, turning resistance, we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside of the target set, the 58.62. And if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2, the 57.85. So the next market we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now, last week we were looking for a pullback in the euro dollar, and we started to actually break just down below the level we were looking at last week. So we've adjusted this down very slightly to the 1.10940 going into this week. So this week we are now sitting at the 1.10940, which is a key area of broken resistance, turning support from last week. So very simply put, going into this week, especially as we are now sitting at that key area of resistance in the dollar index, if we can start to get some bullish patterns and reversal patterns in this area, this is a great place to start once again to look for bullish setups. And if we get those bullish setups, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and the target set at 1.1249. And if we can get a break through here, although it may take a couple of weeks to get up to here, we are going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and target 2 at the 1.1342. So next market we're going to look at is pound dollar. Now, last week we were looking for a pullback down towards the 1.2986 area, which we highlighted in last week's video. We have started to make our way down towards this area, but we haven't quite tested it yet. So very simply put, going into this week, if we can come back a little bit further, that would be fantastic, as we always like to retest broken resistance turning support. But any pullback in this area, you can see, is now going to give us an opportunity to start to look for those bullish setups. And if we get the right kind of bullish setups in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and the target set, the 1.3380. And if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and target 2, the 1.3712. So next market we're going to look at is the US dollar Japanese yen. Now, last week we had this kind of whipsawing to the downside and then the upside off the back of the US-Iran tension. So just bear in mind, with those ongoing tensions, they haven't completely finished just yet. So we do have some risk in this market and other yen pairs going into next week. So just bear in mind if you are trading these. Very simply put, last week after this whipsawing, we finished the week actually sitting at the 109.67, which is the top of, it's actually the top of a range in the US dollar yen. And as the dollar index is currently still sitting at the key area of resistance that we're looking at, and we're looking for a potential decline in the dollar index. This is an area going into next week now. We are going to start to look for potential sell setups in the dollar yen. And if we get the right kind of sell setups in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside of the target set at the 108.28. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 107.24. So next markets that we're going to look at is Aussie dollar. Now last week we were looking for a pullback and we actually traded straight through the level we were looking at. There was no reversal at all. We actually went through it like a knife through hot butter at 0.6900. And there was no setup in the Aussie dollar last week, but going into this week, we are now sitting at a key area of support at 0.6864. This is a key area of broken resistance from the past, turning support last week. And this is now going to be a great place to start to look for those bullish setups in this market. And if we get the right kind of bullish setups in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and the target set, the 0.6992. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and target 2, at the 0.7084. So next market that we're going to look at is New Zealand dollar. Now last week we were looking for a pullback and we highlighted the key area of 0.66150 for you last week to look for a bounce to the upside in New Zealand dollar. We have started to bounce to the upside, and this is now, especially once again as the dollar index is currently sitting at that key area of resistance we're looking at, this is going to be a place going into next week. We're going to start to look for those bullish setups, and we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and the target set, at 0.6773. So next market that we're going to look at is the US dollar Swiss franc. Now last week we highlighted the key area of broken support, looking to turn resistance at the 0.9770. We came very close to it. We haven't tested it just yet, but going into next week, this is now a great place to start to look for those bearish setups. If we can come back as always, preferably and retest, that would be fantastic, and that would give us a great opportunity to start to look for these bearish patterns to the downside. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside and the target set, the 0.9635. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2, the 0.9584. So next market that we're going to look at is the US dollar CAD. Now last week we highlighted the key area of broken support, looking to turn resistance to the 1.30650. We did get to pull back to this area, and now going into next week, this is a great place to start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. We're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside of the target set at the 1.2925. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 1.2785. Now last but by no means least, we have gold. Now last week we were looking for further advances to the upside, and we did come around and take out the target set from last week at the 1589.98 before selling off as profit taking came in. So very simply put, going into this week, we are focused on bullish setups in gold. We are looking for further advances in this market. We currently sit at a key area of broken resistance from the past, already turning support at the 1552.64. So this going into next week is now a great place to start to look for those bullish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bullish setups in this market, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and the target set, at the 1616.70. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to everyone who does that on a regular basis, and a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel so far. I want to wish you all a fantastic week next week. I want to wish you all a nice weekend. The only thing left for me to say, guys, is take care and don't forget to trade safely.